When my childhood friend Jack Hudson personally delivered me to an old man's bed, I felt genuinely happy. I was about to complete my mission and return to the real world. After all these years of self-sabotage, I had finally exhausted the last shred of familial affection that the male lead, Jack Hudson, had left for me. But just as I was about to complete the mission and leave, Jack Hudson went mad. ##01. I had transmigrated into a book, becoming the green tea supporting female character in a sweet romance novel. Now, right at this moment, my story as a supporting character was finally reaching its end. Unable to endure my antics any longer, the childhood friend turned male lead had finally sent me to an oily man's bed. After the man ruined me, and my parents, pressured by family reputation, had no choice but to marry me off to him, the story of the male and female leads would finally achieve its perfect, happy ending. And I would complete all my tasks, leave this world, and return to reality. I woke up to the lingering haze of alcohol, my hands tied behind my back, lying powerless in a Las Vegas casino hotel suite. An obese, greasy man leaned over me, his body reeking of a mix of cologne and cigar smoke. A creeping, tingling dread gradually enveloped my entire being. The lingering burn of bourbon filled my head, and I finally realized with belated horror where I was. This was the scene where I was about to be violated by a man. Just moments before, I had ruined the engagement party of my childhood friend Jack Hudson and his girlfriend Emma Rogers, humiliating the woman he loved most in front of all the guests in Beverly Hills. My punishment was to be drugged and delivered to this hotel bed by Jack Hudson's men. Along with me came Mike Thompson, a notoriously sleazy Hollywood producer, the very man who was now on top of me, intent on assaulting me. As Jack Hudson's men restrained me, forcing glass after glass of spiked tequila down my throat, Jack sat directly in front of me, watching coldly, swirling an expensive whiskey glass in his hand. I thought, perhaps my long-running self-destruction had finally used up the last bit of kinship he still felt for me. Dealing with a woman he no longer had feelings for, he had become ruthless. Even now, as the man left slobbery saliva on me, I knew Jack must be watching my suffering from the other end of a surveillance feed, his gaze icy. I knew it was almost over. Once Jack grew disgusted with me and married me off. Once I passed this final trial, I could leave this world. I could return to reality and see the person I loved. But just as I closed my eyes, silently awaiting the execution of my sentence, the weight of the man on top of me suddenly vanished. The pressure abruptly lightened, and my limp body managed to gasp a breath of relief. Confused, I looked up and saw Jack Hudson staring at me, his eyes bloodshot, his expensive Armani suit wrinkled and his tie askew. Thompson had been kicked aside by him, trembling and not daring to speak. His expression was terrible, his features dark and menacing, as if he wanted to tear me to pieces. He cursed, his voice carrying the accent of New York's Upper East Side. "Don't you know how to resist? Can't you scream for help?" There was an emotion in his eyes I couldn't decipher. My mind was foggy, and for a moment, I didn't know how to react. Wasn't he the one who drugged me and sent me to that man's bed? Shouldn't he be watching me be defiled, removing this stumbling block from his romantic path, and then contentedly moving on with the female lead? Perhaps because I stayed silent, he had nowhere to vent his fury. With red-rimmed eyes, he stepped forward and scooped me up. But the moment he touched my burning skin, his expression changed. "You have a fever?" Wrapping his Burberry trench coat around me, he rushed out of the hotel suite like a madman, ignoring the shocked glances of other guests in the hallway. Watching his frantic expression, I was still stunned, desperately wanting to ask him why. Why would he still worry about me? He had seen with his own eyes his men spiking my drinks. If I could just endure this night, I could go home. Jack Hudson, why are you suddenly not following the script? ##02. When I woke again, the sharp smell of disinfectant filled my nose. I lay in a VIP room of a private hospital in Los Angeles, California, sunlight and palm trees visible through the window. Sitting by my hospital bed was someone I hadn't expected. The female lead, Emma Rogers. What was she doing here? Seeing me awake, Emma snapped out of her reverie, her expression carrying an ambiguous meaning as she spoke. "I didn't expect you to pull such a major move. Setting yourself up to be assaulted by Thompson, making Jack abandon me alone at the engagement party to save your virtue. I really have to admit, after all these years, Miss Vera, what impressive tactics. I parted my dry lips, wanting to say that wasn't it, that I no longer intended to interfere with them. But my cracked lips tore painfully, stealing my voice and leaving me speechless. Seeing me like this, Emma just frowned slightly, said nothing more, helped me sit up, and handed me a glass of Evian water with ice. I thanked her silently. After taking the water, the room fell into a sudden quiet. I'm sorry. Before I could even finish my sentence of explanation, Jack suddenly appeared. His gaze skipped over me, fixing directly on Emma as he frowned and asked, "What are you doing here?" "I couldn't find you anywhere," Emma explained, "just visiting your sister." Only then did Jack seem to notice me, his eyes filled with disgust that seemed to overflow. "She's not my sister anymore. I don't have such a scheming sister." Then, he took Emma's hand and headed for the door. "Stay away from her from now on. You know what she's been like these past few years." Emma gave me a surprised look, then smiled and agreed, leaving with Jack. My hand gripping the water glass slowly tightened. That Jack who had gone mad with worry over my fever and rushed me to the hospital seemed like nothing but an illusion. A phantom I'd glimpsed in my delirium. But when I was burning with fever, I clearly heard him calling me Lily over and over. No one in this world knew my name was Lily. 3 years ago, I had transmigrated into this sweet romance novel, becoming the green tea supporting character whose role was to advance the relationship between the male and female leads. I could only follow the tasks assigned by the system, walking through the plot step by step. Once I completed my mission, I could return to the real world and see the person I longed for. My husband, Chris Anderson. Chris and I had a marriage of convenience. Since our wedding, we had treated each other with mutual respect. But he didn't know that I had been secretly in love with him for 6 years. A full 6 years. My gaze had followed him, finally moving from campus to the wedding altar. Yet only a year after our marriage, a terminal illness took his life. Despite years of medical training, I was powerless against his condition. I watched him leave. Only when the system appeared did I see hope again. The system told me, as long as you complete the transmigration mission, repair the plot, and see the character's story to its end, your husband can be resurrected. I agreed. As long as I finished the storyline, my husband could come back to life. I endured 3 years in this book, finally reaching the climax, about to complete my mission. But then the male lead, Jack Hudson, ruined everything. That day, he suddenly appeared and disrupted the plot. As he ran, he called out, "Lily," again and again. The light from the Beverly Hills street lamps flickered across his face, bright then dark, reminiscent of the 6 years I had spent chasing after him. In that hazy moment, I felt like I saw Chris. Only Chris would say to me over and over, "Lily, let's go home." ##03. Late at night, my body grew hot again. In my dazed state, I saw someone moving around my bed. Finally, he took my hand in his, pressing and kneading it again and again, trying to alleviate my discomfort. The familiar motion made me tremble slightly. But before I could think further, I fell unconscious from the fever. I next saw Jack a week later. After being discharged from the hospital, I moved back to the Hudson family's villa in Malibu and hadn't contacted him. I thought perhaps if I stayed away from the male lead, waited for the male and female leads to achieve their happy ending, I could finally go home. But then the system, which had been silent for 3 years, suddenly found me. The male lead's plot is severely corrupted. You need to go stimulate the male lead and reinforce the female lead's importance in his mind. The male lead's plot was corrupted? What had happened these past few days? And so, I attended Jack and Emma's engagement party again, this time as the girlfriend of Emma's brother, Ben Rogers. When I appeared before Jack with Ben's arm linked in mine, I noticed his expression change. He seemed about to walk towards me but was stopped by Emma grabbing his wrist. It was at that moment I finally understood what a corrupted male lead looked like. He actually shook off Emma's hand. In 3 years of being the green tea supporting character, I had never once seen him truly lash out at the female lead. But now, he had done exactly that. He never made it to me, Emma dragged him away. I frowned. What had gone wrong? Could it be that in this novel, the male lead would ultimately fall for the green tea supporting character? Ben and I waited uneventfully for the party to begin. Jack and Emma made their entrance arm in arm, the perfect picture of a handsome man and beautiful woman, a match made in heaven. This time, Jack didn't look at me. He mounted the stage with a happy smile. I narrowed my eyes. My mission this time was to drug Emma, have her taken away, and let Jack rescue her. Just as I was pondering how to do it, Ben suddenly tugged my hand. Snapping back to reality, I saw our faces suddenly projected on a large screen. Jack stared at the image of Ben and me, momentarily lost. The room fell into dead silence. Suddenly, Jack clutched his head in pain and screamed. Emma, standing beside him, panicked and reached out to touch him, but Jack swatted her hand away. The surrounding guests had already been frightened into fleeing. A moment later, Jack shook his head, his eyes bloodshot as he fixed a deadly stare on me and started walking my way. But after only a few steps, he clutched his head in agony again. It was as if something in his brain was fighting him for control of his body. The moment this thought arose, I saw two bodyguards step forward, grab Jack, and try to forcibly remove him. Jack struggled desperately against the two men, his face turning towards me, his eyes filled with an emotion I couldn't read. With a voice choked with tears, he called out to me, "Lily." I shot to my feet, calling out in disbelief, "Chris? Chris." Instinctively, I tried to run towards where he was being taken, but Emma yanked me around and slapped me hard across the face. "How many more times are you going to interfere with us?" My face burned with pain, my mind felt like it was stuffed with paste, utterly unable to process what Emma was saying. My brain held only that one word, Lily. And those eyes filled with a jumble of emotions, helplessness, longing, worry. Was he my Chris? ##04. Emma told everyone that Jack had been under a lot of stress lately, under immense pressure, which had caused his outburst at the engagement party. Only I knew that wasn't true. The system said the male lead's plot was corrupted, most likely due to interference from an external force. And that force most likely came from my husband, Chris. After marrying Chris, he had always treated me well. I didn't know if he loved me, his wife from a marriage of convenience. But undeniably, after marriage, he was a more considerate husband than I had imagined. He cared about my dietary preferences, my health. When I was sick with a fever, he would stay by my bed, holding and pressing my hand. He said a teacher at Harvard Medical School had taught him that. We were recognized as an affectionate couple, though we remained just that, a couple. But I didn't mind. After 6 years of secret longing, I had finally caught up to him. That alone satisfied me. Working in the same Manhattan office building meant he would wait for me to finish work late at night. We'd walk through the neon lights of Times Square, buy a hot dog from a vendor near Central Park, and go home together. I loved the peaceful life spent with the one I loved. Chris's eyes, when they looked at me, always held an emotion I couldn't decipher. I thought Chris didn't love me. Even when he was dying from his illness, he never once showed emotional vulnerability in front of me. He was always calm and composed, the picture of a proper husband in my presence. Until today, when I heard Jack call out that long-in-use name. That wave of strange yet familiar emotion washed over me. In this book, my name was Vera Hudson, but in reality, I was Lily Anderson. No one in this world called me that. Lily, such a familiar name, pounding against my sanity again and again. Finally, I remembered, the figure who carried me to the hospital that day, the one who pressed my hand during that feverish night. None of it was an illusion. I had to see him. I had to figure out what was happening. But when I appeared before Jack, he had already reverted to his usual self. "What are you doing here? Come to watch me make a fool of myself?" Jack sneered at me, standing before the floor-to-ceiling windows of his New York penthouse, the glittering cityscape stretching behind him. I observed him carefully. Isn't it normal for a sister to visit her brother? He paused for 2 seconds before continuing, "Sister? I'd rather you were still that obedient, sweet sister from years ago." I fell silent for a long moment. I could perhaps understand Jack's feelings. According to the book's plot, Vera was originally a sweet, clever girl. But after the female lead appeared, she repeatedly interfered in their relationship, causing constant misunderstandings. Any normal person would struggle to accept such a change in someone close to them, let alone in a fictional world. But now, I needed to break this all open. I said to Jack, because your sister disappeared years ago. The person standing before you now is an outsider who has taken her place. I still wasn't sure if Chris existed within him. I had to provoke him. Sure enough, Jack's eyes widened for a second, and he asked in disbelief, "What did you say?" I said, "Your world is just a novel. And I am an outsider." The next second, the lights flickered wildly, and the ground shook. A piercing alarm sounded in my ears, "Program error." A moment later, the lights went out. Jack's face showed no reaction, as if he hadn't noticed the changes at all. I waited another 2 seconds. Jack finally moved, speaking as if I had just arrived, wearing the same expression as before. "What are you doing here?" My blood ran cold. I couldn't say a word. The system was repairing this world. I, a mere supporting character, couldn't alter any of the book's predetermined tracks. #05. After leaving Jack's apartment, I drove to a basement bar in New York. Glass after glass of bourbon washed down my throat before I began to feel somewhat sober. Without noticing, someone sat down beside me. "What are you doing here?" Ben smiled and handed me a martini. "Saw you looking utterly devastated coming out of Jack's place. Worried you might do something drastic." I rolled my eyes at him and kept drinking. Then he asked me out of the blue, "Do you really like Jack that much?" I paused, then retorted, "Whether I do or don't, what's it to you?" Ben slowly took my glass and drained the remaining liquor in one gulp. Then he leaned in close, his breath, also laced with alcohol, washing over my face as he asked with a smile, "After all these years, you still won't give me a proper glance?" I was about to reply when I noticed the uncomfortably close distance and frowned. In the blink of an eye, Ben was roughly yanked away. Someone had punched him squarely in the face. I was momentarily stunned. Recognizing the newcomer, alarm bells rang in my head. What was Jack doing here? Before I could react, Jack began pummeling Ben with one fist after another, putting his full strength into it. Jack's eyes were bloodshot at the corners, veins bulging on his forehead, his gaze icy. Finally snapping to my senses, I tried to stop Jack. "Jack, stop. This is Ben. What are you doing?" Jack ignored me, hitting harder and harder. Ben also stayed silent, simply taking the blows. Finally, I realized something was off. Jack would never beat up his girlfriend's brother for my sake. "Chris?" Jack's hand froze. He turned to look at me, his eyes wide with fury. My body trembling, I tentatively called out again, "Chris?" The Ben he was holding was suddenly dropped to the floor. He turned, grabbed my hand, and strode away quickly. I stared in disbelief at the man holding my hand, his tall frame gradually overlapping with the image in my memory. My voice shaking, I asked, "Are you really Chris?" The neon lights of New York streets flickered around us as he suddenly stopped walking. The next second, he turned around and pulled me into a tight embrace. The wind rushed towards us, carrying a sense of overwhelming longing. I was pulled into the arms of the person I longed for most, my tears shattering the reflections of the neon lights. Chris held me tightly, as if trying to press me into his very flesh and blood. Too much pent-up longing and grievance suddenly overflowed. Holding the person I had missed so desperately, I wept openly on the streets of New York. Why was Chris here? Why had he appeared in this world where I was so utterly humiliated? All my persistence, all my determination, turned to dust the moment I confirmed it was him. Chris clumsily comforted me, wiping away my tears before pulling me back into his embrace. However, perhaps the shock and joy had come too suddenly. I forgot that violating the task set by the system would bring punishment. #06. The next instant, a fine electric current shot through my body, silently punishing my transgression. I convulsed once before the immense pain electrocuted me into unconsciousness. When I woke again, I was in a hospital room. Chris was no longer by my side. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, lost in thought. That electric shock, I knew, was the system's punishment. Because I had overstepped. My mission was to stay away from the male lead and bring the male and female leads together. But Chris's appearance made me unable to resist moving closer to him, who now possessed the male lead's identity. And so I was punished. Chris, occupying the male lead's identity, had altered the plot. That's why the system couldn't fix it and needed my intervention. But why was Chris here? He had already passed away before I even transmigrated into the book. I had watched his heartbeat slowly stop with my own eyes. That heart-wrenching pain was something I still couldn't forget. As I was lost in thought, Chris walked in from outside the door. My heart leaped with joy. I was about to smile and call his name, but the smile froze on my lips when I saw his expression. He wasn't Chris. I suppressed my smile, watching Jack approach my bedside. His face was utterly cold. I was about to ask him why he was here when, the next second, terror seized my entire being. Jack quickly reached out and forcefully gripped my neck, his expression one of pure madness. Who are you? What have you done to me? It's all because of you. You must have cast some witchcraft on me, making me abandon Emma again and again. What kind of demon are you? Breathing became increasingly difficult. My neck was in his grip, and it felt like it would soon be snapped. Was he going to kill me? What about the system? Could it really do nothing if the male lead killed a supporting character outside the plot? Was I going to die here? Asphyxiation set in, my face turning red from lack of air. I couldn't die yet. The intense pain forced tears from my eyes. Looking at the frenzied Jack, I strained to squeeze a few words from my throat. Ch. Chris. Senior. A flicker of confusion crossed Jack's face, and the pressure on my neck eased for a split second. I quickly sucked in a breath, barely catching a momentary respite. But he immediately snapped back and continued choking me frantically. Just as the scene before my eyes grew increasingly chaotic and my consciousness began to fade, someone burst into the room. Jack. Let go. A familiar voice. Then the pressure on my neck vanished as the choking hand was suddenly removed. I gasped for air, my body frantically trying to save itself, but my consciousness kept sinking. Someone was calling to me by my ear, Vera, wake up. Don't fall asleep. Who was Vera? Me? My name wasn't Vera. Lily Anderson. It's me, wake up. My consciousness, like a fish breaking through the water's surface, suddenly surged upwards. My eyes snapped open to see Emma and Jack standing by my bedside, looking at me with concern. Seeing me awake, Emma seemed to let out a sigh of relief. She sat down to the side, pointedly ignoring Jack, who was holding my hand. I looked at Jack and was momentarily stunned. Why hadn't I noticed before that Jack's face bore a 5/10 resemblance to Chris's? Now, that 5/10 resemblance, combined with the familiar look in his eyes, made me feel as if I was seeing the real Chris appear before me. I gripped his hand back and said with a smile, I'm okay. Chris's face was full of guilt. Emma abruptly interrupted our interaction. All right, time to explain what's going on. Explain how two consciousnesses can exist in one person. I stopped smiling. As expected of the female lead, able to quickly identify the core issue amidst the corrupted plot. I looked at Chris. I also wanted to know why he was inside Jack's body. #07. I met Chris during my sophomore year. I had just chosen a seat in the Harvard Library and was about to sit down when I got a call from my academic advisor. I had to hurriedly put down my books and step outside to take the call. When I returned, I found my textbook and sat down to start working on problems. But even though I'd understood the material in class, I suddenly couldn't make sense of the problems now. Just as I was scratching my head and finally grasping a sample problem enough to attempt it, someone sat down next to me. I sensed he hadn't brought any textbooks, he was just quietly watching me work. I couldn't help but feel a little nervous. Why was he staring at me? Just then, as I was finishing the problem, he passed me a note. Some steps are wrong. Where were they wrong? I checked my work again but couldn't find the issue. I looked up at him and met his smiling eyes. He taught me how to solve the problem correctly. I really couldn't understand why someone would just randomly teach a stranger their homework. Then my alarm vibrated, reminding me it was time for lunch. At that moment, he reached over and asked with a quiet laugh, "Can I have my book back now, underclassman?" That's when it hit me, this wasn't my textbook at all. I turned around. My own textbook was sitting quietly on the seat behind me. My face instantly flushed bright red with embarrassment. I wished I could find a hole to crawl into. Why did the junior and sophomore year textbooks look so similar? I shoved the book at him and fled in humiliation. No wonder I couldn't understand the sample problems from class. How mortifying. From then on, I learned there was a senior like him in our department. Strangely, I found myself unconsciously tracking his movements, paying attention to his personality and preferences. Until one day, I saw him waiting outside the women's dormitory. A girl came out, and they walked away side by side. He seemed to have a girlfriend. I became sullen, losing my appetite and sleep. When my roommate asked if I'd been dumped, it suddenly dawned on me. Had I fallen for him? No way, impossible. How could I fall for a guy I'd only spent one afternoon with? But life is just that peculiar. I had fallen for Chris, and I stayed in love with him for a full 6 years. 6 years. From college to medical school, I followed in his footsteps, slowly making my way to his side. But there were always other women around him. He probably didn't see me, I thought. But it still hurt. Seeing the boy I'd liked for years with another girl felt like my heart was being twisted into knots. But I told myself, just being by his side was enough. I didn't ask for more. Yet I never expected our families to arrange a marriage between us. Both our families were well off, but I'd never heard any rumors about an alliance. I was going to marry him. He and his girlfriend were forced to separate. Would he hate me? Would he see me as the enemy who tore him apart from his love? But to my surprise, he never mentioned his girlfriend. Instead, he dutifully became my husband. The boy I liked became my husband. And he didn't hate me. This immense happiness overwhelmed me. I cherished every single second I spent with him. Until one day, the dream shattered. #08. The critical condition notice, the chaotic flurry of people, the urgent alarms. These formed the memories I least wanted to touch. I looked at Chris as he spoke seriously. I know this world of ours is a novel. Emma and Jack are the male and female leads. Hearing this, I instinctively glanced at Emma. Emma looked bewildered. She frowned, asking incredulously, "A novel? Male and female leads?" She looked at me, about to ask something. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the alarm sounded again. Just like last time. Steadying myself against the shaking, I quickly grabbed Chris's hand. He looked at me solemnly and shook his head. After the lights flickered on and off, Emma's expression went blank, and she stood there dazed and unresponsive. My heart felt chilled. Even when the male lead said these things, would the world still be corrected? I looked worriedly at Chris, but to my surprise, he seemed unaffected. He gave me a reassuring look and waited for Emma's change. Emma's eyes shifted, her gaze landing on Chris's and my joined hands. Her expression shifted. With a somewhat vicious look, she strode towards me, her hand raised as if to strike my face. Chris reacted swiftly, shielding me behind him. Her voice rang out, filled with disbelief, "Jack? Why are you protecting her? Have you forgotten how she humiliated me?" Chris said nothing. I peeked out from behind him. I saw her face streaked with tears, glaring at Chris with resentment. Had she already forgotten what just happened? Was this the system's doing? What about Chris? I looked at him. He spoke seriously to Emma. "I'm sorry, there have been some changes recently. Someone should explain this to you properly later." Then, He took my hand and quickly led me away. Behind us, Emma's furious shout echoed, "Vera, just you wait." Sitting on Santa Monica Beach, feeling the Pacific Ocean breeze, everything still felt surreal. Chris sat down beside me and handed me an ice cream cone. We had run away from that city. I stared directly at him and asked, "You still haven't told me why you're here." He paused, then sighed with a faint smile. With the sea breeze blowing towards us, I heard him say, "I don't know either. I just opened my eyes and found myself in this body." He said it was about a year ago when he woke up inside Jack's body, but he didn't have control. Coming to an unfamiliar world for the first time, I was actually terrified, until I heard your voice. His smile reached his eyes as he gently touched my head. Inside this body, I could hear the thoughts of the girl in front of me, who was meddling and causing trouble while simultaneously cursing this absurd plot in her mind. What? The ice cream cone in my hand suddenly fell onto the sand. He could hear my thoughts. Did that mean everything I thought was heard by him? My image as a gentle, considerate underclassman was ruined. Just as I was on the verge of tears, Chris, as if reading my mind, pulled me into his embrace. His laughter vibrated through his chest, making my ears tingle. "Ha ha ha, any image you had is long gone in my mind. But why do you suddenly have control of the body now?" I asked him. He was silent for a long time before saying, "Because that day, I couldn't bear to see you go through that again in front of me. That has always been a nightmare I can't shake." ##09. An expression of pain crossed his face, suddenly pulling me back to that year in my memories. That summer, I was about to graduate. I had agreed to meet Chris that evening to discuss some experimental work, but I got delayed at home. By the time I left the house, it was already dark. I didn't want to keep him waiting. Maybe it was because I'd been so busy with graduation that I hadn't seen him in a while. I was feeling particularly eager. I didn't take the usual main road. Instead, I took a shortcut through an alley in Brooklyn. Little did I know, that one choice nearly became the darkest moment of my life. I stumbled upon a street assault. When I hurriedly turned into the alley, the several men in the midst of the assault were momentarily stunned. So was I. The light was dim. I squinted, finally making out the scene. Several large men were surrounding another, smaller man. At that moment, the smaller man was already on the ground, curled up, blood staining the pavement. The moment I realized what was happening, I turned and ran. The materials I was carrying scattered everywhere. Pure terror filled me. I just wanted to get as far away from those men as possible. They were several large men in the middle of an assault. I didn't dare to speculate about human nature in that moment. As I ran, I frantically hit the emergency button on my phone 5 times to call the police, then dialed Chris's number. "Senior, I might be a little late, there's something, MMPH." Before I could finish, a man suddenly appeared in front of me, clamping a hand over my mouth and nose, dragging me to the side. My phone fell to the ground with a sharp crack. Struggling was useless, let alone screaming. My mouth was completely sealed. By the time Chris arrived, I was already being bundled up, about to be thrown into a vehicle. Perhaps because I reacted quickly and ran a good distance before being caught, and there weren't any deeper alleys nearby where I was grabbed. I wasn't subjected to the worst immediately. But that scare was enough to affect me for a long time. "So that's what you were talking about," I said, leaning against him. "But nothing actually happened, right?" He shook his head. I couldn't bear to see it. I grasped his hand. "So, you liked me way back then?" He looked at me, seemingly surprised. "You didn't know?" "Know what?" Chris looked into my eyes. "Didn't know I liked you? Didn't know I specifically asked my parents to arrange a marriage alliance so I could marry you? Didn't know I hoped to spend my whole life with you?" A lump formed in my throat, "But you never said." Chris lowered his gaze, pulling me into a tight embrace, his voice muffled against me. "It was my fault. Right up until I died, I never had the courage to properly confess my feelings to you. You have no idea how much I regret it. If I'd known my life would be so short, I would have shouted my feelings for you from the rooftops, early on. The sound of his heartbeat thudded in my ear, each beat like the constant fluttering in my own heart. But don't you know? That day, once I completed that plot point, I could return to the real world, and you could be resurrected. I remembered, looking up at him. Chris was stunned. Resurrected? Yes, by transmigrating into the book, completing the tasks. But Chris interrupted me. But my consciousness is inside the male lead's body. Don't you see something is wrong with that? Now it was my turn to be stunned. #10. Yeah, why was his consciousness here? He suddenly grabbed my shoulders. My consciousness is trapped in this world. Do you still think I could really be resurrected then? And what if, after you complete your mission, you can't return to reality? What then? You marry someone else here, can't go back, my consciousness gradually surfaces, and you have to watch me be with someone else? I opened my mouth but couldn't speak. Right. How could I have been so gullible, agreeing to this system's mission so easily? If I couldn't resurrect Chris and return to reality, what was the point of living in this world? I didn't like this world at all. I suddenly felt discouraged, wondering what the purpose of my 3 years of effort had been. He wiped my tears and comforted me. Of course, it was so I could see you. Be good, don't think too much. Leave it to me. That night, I checked the news. Hudson Group heir abandons fiancé and elopes with mistress. Emma had posted about Chris and me online, sparking public outrage. What's with these rich kids nowadays? They all like to betray their fiancés? That mistress is such a B***tch. I heard she's been meddling for years. The comments piled up, already reaching tens of thousands of replies. What do you plan to do next? I asked Chris. He sat at the table, working on a craft project under the dim hotel room light. Soon, a very simple acrylic flowing photo keychain was completed. It was truly simple. The photo was one we'd taken on the spot, and the acrylic sheets were bought last minute. Thankfully, we still looked somewhat like our real selves. At first glance, it really did look like a photo of us from reality. He turned and handed the keychain to me. I remember you used to like these little trinkets. Consider it a keepsake. I took it, turning it over in my hands. Abruptly, his words sounded like a farewell. If you can't be resurrected, I'd rather just stay in this world with you. Tears suddenly spilled from my eyes. Reluctance, attachment, all sorts of emotions pressed on my heart, an unbearable ache. Chris gently wiped my tears, shaking his head. No. In the real world, your family and friends are waiting for you. Go to sleep now. Don't think too much. I'm here. I fell asleep with tears on my face, hoping tomorrow would bring more peaceful times. But when I woke the next morning, Chris was gone. I searched all around the hotel but couldn't find him. I tried to reassure myself, it's fine, our luggage is still here, nothing bad could have happened. At most, Jack had regained control of the body and gone back to Emma. But the thought of not knowing when I'd see him again, the journey home seeming increasingly distant, made my heart feel heavy. It wasn't until I saw today's news video that I realized what Chris had done. He had driven a car and crashed into Emma. What was he doing? Had he lost his mind? Watching the footage, both of them lying bloodied on stretchers, felt like a knife twisting in my heart. I stood up in a panic, pacing back and forth, not knowing what to do. Looking at the video again, I noticed something strange. The video was rewinding. At the same time, everything around me began to warp and collapse. #11. That idiot Chris. He was using the protagonist's plot armor/advantages to try and break this world. The surroundings completely distorted. The next moment, a tremendous force yanked me, sending me flying into the air. I was thrown into a dim, empty space. The system's frantic alarm blared in my ears. Error. Error. Floating in this space, I could somehow see the outside world. Outside, all the scenery was collapsing, reconstructing, collapsing again, reconstructing again, endless chaos. I saw Emma's body rapidly healing, standing up and walking, then lying down again. This novel world was in complete disarray. The system's alarm kept blaring, runtime error. Alert. Alright, can you shut your damn mouth? I suddenly heard Chris's voice. Turning, I saw Chris walking slowly towards me. The system's voice grew even more panicked. How did you do this? Just one more plot point, and this world's construction would have been complete. I could have used both our souls to build this entire novel world, while you sat back, reaped the rewards, completed your quota, and left happily. Chris said coldly, dream on. Floating in the air, I tried to get closer to Chris but was blocked by an invisible wall. I frantically beat against the invisible barrier. What are you doing, Chris? Come out, I can't touch you, don't do anything stupid. A glowing orb suddenly appeared in the dim space, hovering before Chris, its agitation palpable. How did you know? You think you can escape like this? You're too naive. Tears were already streaming down my face, though I didn't know when they'd started. If I didn't understand Chris's goal by now, I'd be truly foolish. But understanding his goal only buried me deeper in layers of sorrow. I don't want to lose you again. He wanted to use the protagonistess on the male lead's body to fight the entire world, fight the system, and allow my external soul to be separated and return to reality. But what about you? Can't you think of yourself? Can't you think of me? You want me to return to the real world alone, leaving me by myself again? No matter how frantic you are, it's useless. I'm in the male lead. You can't do anything to harm the protagonist. You never should have targeted Lily from the start. You have no idea what a determined, strong girl she is. And you don't know what I'm willing to sacrifice. I watched him grab the glowing orb, crush it into a small sphere in his hand, then look at me once more before walking towards me. He smiled at me. Lily, be kinder to yourself, okay? You've gotten so thin these past few years. I shook my head, letting tears fall freely. No, I haven't. I eat and drink plenty every day. I won't let you affect me. After you go back, stop obsessing over the cause of my death. Such a serious illness was never something you could have solved. Don't blame yourself forever. My heart ached as if gripped tightly. How could I not blame myself? I lived with you day and night, yet I didn't notice something was wrong sooner. I studied medicine, yet I didn't pay constant attention to your health. It was my failure. I hope you can move on and start a new life. My Lily, my underclassman, has always been strong and optimistic. I believe nothing can hold her back. I don't want to. Chris, you're really the worst. What right do you have to leave me twice without my consent? We promised to pick each other up from work every day, to be together every day. How dare you break that promise? I watched him stomp the orb under his foot. It shattered instantly, and along with it, the world before my eyes began to crack and fall apart. Pressed against the invisible wall, I beat against it madly, shouting, trying to pull Chris out too. But he slowly walked up to me, placed his hand over where mine was, and looked at me quietly through the barrier. In that moment, I finally deciphered the countless emotions in his eyes. Love, reluctance, regret. The scenery behind him shattered bit by bit, spreading until it reached his own body. I could no longer hear any sound. A tremendous force tore me away, forcibly separating me from the Chris before my eyes. No. Don't go, I beg you, don't leave me alone again. Large teardrops fell. I wiped my eyes, trying to see him more clearly. His body had already begun to crumble. I saw him part his lips and say a few words. Overwhelming grief swallowed me. I watched him disappear before my eyes. He said, I love you. ##12. The tremendous force pulled me away. I fell from 10,000 meters high. All the images before my eyes vanished completely. I landed heavily, my back slamming into something solid. Gasping for air, my eyes snapped open. Harsh light assaulted my vision. A hospital room. The smell of disinfectant. Weakness. A breathing tube. And a group of people surrounding me, looking at me. Mom, Dad, and my family. I was back. I moved my hand, feeling something in it. My observant mother noticed the movement. She took the object from my hand and showed it to me. It was that simple acrylic keychain. On it, Chris was smiling brightly, a smile I had never seen before. That idiot again. A single, powerless tear slid from the corner of my eye. Chris, do you think if you abandon me, I'll listen to you? I won't. I'll never forget you. I'll remember you for a lifetime. The end. Chris's extra chapter. I met a very interesting underclassman. She was using my textbook to do her homework, and she was doing it very thoroughly. It's just a shame she was also very thoroughly wrong. I couldn't resist teaching her a little, only to find she was adorably clueless. Good thing I'm not bad looking. She was clearly stunned when she first saw me. I felt a bit smug. It wasn't until it was time to leave that she realized she had the wrong book. How could there be someone so silly in the world, and of course, I had to be the one to run into her. But can anyone tell me why the image of her blushing and fleeing in embarrassment kept replaying in my mind? It even kept me from sleeping. I really wanted to see her. My older sister said I had fallen for her. I didn't believe it. Me, the young master of the Anderson family, falling in love with an airhead at first sight? Then I saw guys asking for her contact info, several in a row. I hadn't even gotten it yet, what right did they have? I desperately wanted to go smash their phones. Thankfully, the underclassmen didn't give it to them. Humph, she knows what's good for her. Fine, I think I really have fallen for her. I think she's seducing me. Otherwise, why does she always smile so sweetly at me? Why doesn't she smile like that at others? Using the advantage of our shared major, I successfully recruited her into our lab group. From then on, I could be with her day and night. That damn year difference finally couldn't keep us apart. But I was so useless. I never dared to tell her I liked her. My sister called me repressed. But I couldn't be sure if she liked me too. Just blurting it out felt too rash, too presumptuous. Better not. But later, when she was about to graduate, she was almost assaulted by thugs. If I hadn't arrived in time, she would have been taken away. How could anyone be so foolish, taking a shortcut just because they were afraid I'd be angry? Am I that scary? It scared me so much I never dared let her walk to or from school alone again. I waited a few more years. I felt I couldn't hold back anymore. I really wanted to tell her I liked her. I still didn't dare. I went to my older sister and mom and asked them to arrange a marriage alliance for me, because I found out her family had some small connections with mine. Perfect. I successfully tricked her into marrying me. She became my wife. I was so excited I didn't know what to say. I did my absolute best to be a good husband, wanting only the best for her. But she still seemed unhappy sometimes. Why? Before I could figure it out, I discovered I was sick. It was a very serious illness. She cried pitifully in front of me. I knew this disease was incurable. What a shame. I still felt a bit unwilling. How many years had I even spent with her? I hadn't had enough time with her. The illness progressed rapidly. I almost lost the ability to speak. I watched her bustling around in front of me, growing thinner by the day, and it hurt me unbearably. Silly girl, I'm already beyond saving. Why keep running around, working so hard in vain? Do you like me that much? It seems my charm is as strong as ever. Still, I had some regrets, some remorse. I never got to say, I love you, to her. I never properly confessed my feelings to her in this lifetime. My sister came to see me. She was crying hard too. What's there to cry about? I'm not inheriting the family business. With or without me, it makes little difference. But later, I desperately begged her, after I'm gone, please give that acrylic keychain to the underclassmen. I know she likes these things, but I, a grown man, could never get it right. I also narcissistically put a photo of us together on it. I wonder if she'll think I'm full of myself. Actually, to be honest, I'm still a bit unwilling. I wanted to have a child with her, grow old together with her. Forget it. I'm about to die. Better hope she can move on and start a new life soon. No, wait. I'm still so selfish. I don't want to see her fall for someone else. I don't want to see her spend the rest of her life with another man. I haven't even told her how much I love her, that I liked her from the very first moment I saw her. I'm too selfish. I want to live a little longer. I want to spend a little more time with this silly girl. Later, I woke up in a strange world. I was actually inside someone else's body. And I saw my underclassmen. So strange. I seemed to hear her thoughts. This place seemed to be a world inside a book. Silly girl, tricked into another world just to find me. I chose to perish together with the system, because that way, she could return to the real world. Underclassmen, don't be foolish. Go back and live your life well. With or without me, it's really all the same.